makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kathleen West. Kathleen is an entrepreneur, visionary, and a true force for positive change. Kathleen's story is not just about overcoming challenges, but transforming them into opportunities. She is the founder of Alivio Technologies Inc. Join me as I learn about the role of healthcare innovations, personal growth, and the work she is doing to give back to her community through volunteering. It's great to finally have this conversation with you. Can you share with us the personal experience that inspired you to launch Alivio Technologies Inc?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be here. So a little bit of backstory on myself as it gets into my company is I have been thriving with psoriatic arthritis for over 10 years. And for context, I was diagnosed at 25. And I have been on a mission to find items that help me manage my day-to-day pain, that give me more mobility and flexibility, as well as they don't break the bank. And Alivio Technologies is a result of that. So I have been experimenting with heat and infrared lights and just technology to get ahead of flare-up prediction. And that's what we're here to do today, and to give other individuals with inflammatory arthritis the same success and relief. So that's a little bit backstory.
But when you say that you are looking for technologies that can make your day-to-day a little bit more better, run a little bit better.
Yeah.
So can you go a little bit deeper into that for me? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So what I mean is that I probably don't look like I am suffering on a day-to-day with debilitating pain. But what you might see on this podcast is that I might be shifting like back and forth. You might see me go like this on my hands. So unfortunately, I have inflammation that limits my mobility in how long I'm able to stand, how long I'm able to walk. So like if I'm sitting, like I feel like my hips locking a little bit. And the best way to describe it for someone who's not as familiar with this type of inflammation or pain is it's like when you go to the gym and you work out either very aggressively, or if you're trying like a new sport, or if you're getting into running or walking, you know how your body is just so stiff afterwards because you haven't been able to do those mobility or that exercise in a while. That unfortunately is what people with chronic inflammation go through on a daily basis. So we often say that we operate at a baseline level. So whether it be stiffness that limits mobility for like 1 to 2 hours a day, and then if it exceeds that normal everyday limitation, that's what we call a flare-up. So a flare-up could be something that makes my stiffness in my hands, or even like that stiffness in like my hips, so unbearable that I'm not even able to sit. Like I would have to be in bed. Normally I would try copious amounts of pain medication before infrared light therapy I discovered. So unfortunately, people often resort to over-the-counter pain medication, opioids, or even steroid injections given by their doctors. And that's a little bit more context and color to what people with this form of arthritis and even rheumatoid arthritis sometimes go through on a day-by-day, sometimes hour-by-hour basis.
But also at the beginning of the conversation, you said that the company help people with that type of issues. But how exactly a technology company can actually do that?
That's a great question. So oftentimes you might hear people around you say, oh, I know it's going to rain because my knee is like really stiff. Mm-hmm. Or I am so fatigued right now. Fatigue is a big indicator that your body is going through a recovery and trying to heal itself. So our body gives us these clues to one, how is the environment impacting our current chronic condition as well as our mood? How is our body reacting to it? Are we having more inflammation levels? Are you having increased pain? Are you more fatigued? And what we do from a technology standpoint is we use the algorithm that I've developed, which is essentially a fancy way of just tracking people's, traits and triggers, and then saying, oh, we've realized that when you are on a tiredness scale of 1 to 5 at that 4, and the weather fluctuates between X and Y percent, your body goes into full on recovery defense mode, which makes your body flare a little bit more than what you're used to. So the idea of the company is to have a two-pronged, approach to arthritis flare-ups and eventually just chronic pain in general. We want people to be able to safely and effectively track what actually causes them pain through an app, which we call the brain. But then I don't want to give someone a problem without a solution. So we have a non-invasive wearable device that uses infrared light, electric stimulation, and hot cold laser therapy in a discrete fashion that they could place on their elbow or on their shoulder and treat them both at the same time with no visible wires. The idea too is that the company is very discreet and inclusive in the fact that our device is going to be offered in 10 plus different flesh tones so that people would only know you're treating your disease or your pain area if you want them to. So it's giving control back to the consumer to be able to say, fortunately, we can't control your autoimmune disease because psoriatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis are, autoimmune chronic, so they continue to progress. But we can give you at least a little bit of relief that's proven by what's worked for me, backed by our research, and then supported by, medical and scientific advisors. So that's a little bit more context to that. I hope that's helpful.
No, it is. That's kind of helped me understand. It's almost like when you kind of monitor when certain things happening with your body, so you'll know exactly, perhaps in your future, if you, for example, if you see if it's going to start raining, get yourself ready that you're probably going to be in a very deep type of pain that you might need to see your doctor or get a shot or something that can help you with this type of pain that's gonna come. So that's actually very interesting. How did you come up with this idea in the first place? Like, I know you suffer from it, but what's make you come up with it?
I'm very determined. My parents would probably tell you to a fault that I don't like to accept no. But I got to a point where I was flaring pretty significantly. So a little bit more about my journey is, I was on a pretty amazing drug called Remicade for about 8 years, and the patent ran out. And what that means for those who are not familiar with this is that insurance sometimes says, okay, we have been able to make something very similar. It's called biosimilars to this powerhouse drug. And as a cost saving initiative on our end, we're going to ask that you ask or tell you that you're not going to go off of your Remicade and you're going to try these biosimilars. And they make you do what's called a step therapy, where you have to try not one, not two, but all of the options. And then your doctor really advocates for you and fights it. So I have an amazing doctor. Shout out to Dr. Thomas in Voorhees. But between her and her team, it took 1.5 years for me to get back on this powerhouse drug. And during that time, I was flaring like you wouldn't believe. So, like, I had psoriasis all over my face. Right now, I have no makeup on for context. I always like to say this, like the drug is pretty powerful in terms of the skin and outer looks. So I had psoriasis from the elbow up. I wasn't able to move. And I was really honestly depressed with the fact that I was on something that was really amazing for me. And now I'm like going back and regressing after 8 years of trying to get myself healthy and right. So I come from a family of like engineers and doctors and, nurses, and literally dinner table talk at my dad's house became, okay, how can we combine these therapeutic devices and make life easier? Not necessarily better, but I just want to be able to make things a little bit easier. So what came into me aggressively buying a lot of therapeutic devices, and think of therapeutic devices as things you can get off of Amazon, right? So like a TENS machine, which that does like electric stimulation, infrared light lamps, all of that. And I literally looked like a walking robot, and there was not enough outlets in the house to be able to support all of the things that I had on my body. And I was like, there has to be a better way. Right? There has to be a better way to make this easier. And then there has to be a way to get ahead of this, because living like this in this pain isn't what anyone wants to do. So I often say that where we started off as a device and then we turned into a tech company was really based off of the research that I was doing aggressively and then talking to other people who had similar issues. And the novelness of what we're doing is in that two-pronged approach, which I keep going back to, which is like getting ahead of it and then treating it. And it's exciting because I get to see how other people are excited for what we're working on and how we can help them. It's also a bit heartbreaking to me that people are living in such debilitating pain that they are still, their quality of life is still very limited. And there are people who are younger than me. There's people who are older than me. There are kids who are in little walkers. And it's just very heartbreaking. So now we're on this mission, which went from dinner table talk to now it's a full-fledged company, right? But how do you keep that authenticness of made for a consumer, for the consumer, but really it's made for a patient by patients. Sure. And then, but backing us up with a really top tier and seasoned medical and engineering team behind us. So that there's also that credibility there that takes us from where we started 2 to 3 years ago to where we are today.
So pretty much the goal of the company is to be able to help treat it if possible.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say, so what we know, right, it's kind of like a loaded question. What we know is that we spoke to over 400 individuals with this disease, and they have said they spend around $160 a month on over-the-counter pain medication on top of
the medication.
On top of their medication, because it's just not effective. And there's 58 million people in the US alone that have arthritis, doctor diagnosed.
Wow.
And it's a progressive disease, right? So when you think about the ability to just help people have a healthier option to that $160 a month for over-the-counter pain medication, like it's like, okay, instead of you having to go buy a bottle of Advil once or twice a week, use our device and it's healthier and it doesn't have the same impacts of, organ deterioration. Sometimes it's, a little bit of addiction or dependency to that point. And then we're also going to have you be smarter in the sense of getting ahead of it. And how do we create holistic and wellness for you in arthritis? And I struggle to say it's a treatment. I just want to say it's an alternative relief solution because, unfortunately, there is no cure or real treatment. There's things that help minimize the symptoms. And I just want people to have a healthier solution instead of what like the doctor often dictates to us as, unfortunately, you have this disease. and here's where you need to go. But you could say, well, actually, I could do, something that Alivio Technologies is building. And yeah, maybe I might have to take pain medicine, but maybe I don't have to take it as much. Or maybe I have more mobility. And that's what success, and that's like what it looks like in terms of just giving the person an option in their treatment journey.
So is the device connected to the app where they can see how many times they use it in a daily basis, in a weekly, monthly, or something like that?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. So we are doing some really big things with this app, and I will be able to, probably when this launches, we'll have everything officially filed with, our patent, and we'll be able to share it. But it's going to be, chronic pain is going to be sexy. So watch out. It's going to be all of these data. It's going to be, you're going to be able to see like average flare-ups per week, where it's located, why, get some insights, and it's going to be your own little like tracker or device for your recovery. And what's nice about it is that it's exportable so that you can give it to your doctor. And that's the other thing that I think is important to highlight, that oftentimes when the doctor asks, okay, what's your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? If you want the good stuff, you're going to be like, oh, like it's a 10. Like I need to up my infusion. I need to up whatever. But if you're able to give, and the doctor's like, well, is it really a 10 or is it more like an 8? And you just want to make, and vice versa with like diagnosis time. So let me rant through this and I will get there. I will close this loop, I promise. But for psoriatic arthritis specifically, it can take up to sometimes 7 to 10 to 20 years to get diagnosed, because individuals aren't able to articulate exactly what is happening. They just know that they feel weird. They feel bad. They are fatigued. They have pain, but maybe they don't have the outer appearance. Like maybe they look a little bit more like myself where they look okay. Right. So it's very hard for doctors to diagnose that. Right? Like if x-rays come back okay, if blood works don't show any inflammation levels, it's a very tough thing. And it's, rheumatologists want to make sure that if they're going to put you on these powerhouse drugs because you are on them indefinitely, they're not putting you on a drug just to put you on a drug because you believe it. So what we're hoping to do in the next wave is give the data exports to docs, say, how is this helpful for you in understanding this person's journey in the last 1, 2, 3, 4 months since you last saw them? And our chief medical officer is helping us with that, right? And like, how does this speak doctor to you, and how does the app speak patient, so that we're marrying up the two, so that we could have a really beautiful relationship between creating that doctor-patient relationship that's really based in trust and credibility of what the data is showing.
Well, this is amazing, though.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's terrifying, but it's going to be really good.
But when you place the device, and like you say, you can place it in your shoulder or in your arm. I'm guessing even in your hands. So when you place in it, does it feel, is it like something that feels kind of like cold? Does it feel a little bit hot? How does that exactly feel? Is it like something that's heavy that's in your hands that you need to carry around? Or is it just like, it's like you have a bandage in your hands, like very simple?
So what's going to be great about it is the device is very, very light, right? And I'm going to just put my AirPod case up for size. The AirPod case is probably 4 times what the actual device will feel like. And we have a breathable strap that we would just be able to put on and leave it and go. What is nice about it is that it's meant not to cause any more discomfort. It's meant to alleviate it. So all of the technologies that we have chosen give the effect of icing or heating the joints without necessarily having that be the sensation that the individual feels. So the individual really shouldn't feel anything maybe besides like a slight vibration because of the electric stimulation, because of the materials that we have chosen to make sure that we know that that area is already sensitive. So we don't want to like put extreme heat or cold on it. We also know that research shows that electric stimulation and the other therapies in a routine therapy in combination manner, right, is the perfect secret sauce to kind of get you up and running. So I always say like infrared light's kind of like the pregame to the party, and then everything else is like there. So you shouldn't really feel it, right? And ultimately, I want people to kind of forget that it's kind of on them so that they could just use it whenever they need it, but then not have to worry about putting it back on like their shoulder or their elbow. They could just leave it and go.
Oh, so you don't really need to remove it to put in. So, like, for example, if you're feeling pain in your hands, you don't need to move it, put it in your hands. You can just put it wherever it is. It's going to help release the pain throughout your body.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with chiropractors or even like a TENS machine that use like pressure points, right? So for example, if I have pain in my hands or in my wrist, I would actually look at the right pressure point location where the nerves are. And I might not get this 100% right. So for people watching me, do not like go and do this, but like you would place it here and then you would be able to get it all the way down throughout your wrist. And then if you were to place it a little bit lower, you would get more localized throughout the fingers. So we're going to give people that diagram and that scorecard that says, here's what doctors and what chiropractors and pressure points are for the top 3 locations that people have indicated. It's the mid to lower back, it's your knee, and it's your hands and your wrists. And then, of course, we're going to elaborate and move to like the shoulder and the, like the ankles, all of that. But here's where, for optimum placement, it is suggested, doctor recommended, suggested that it goes here. And then, that's where it's like, that's where you need to place it. If someone wants to experiment what's best for them, it is a non-invasive, it'll be FDA regulated device. So it'll go through all that protocols. So we're just trying to set them up for success. And then they can just go. And then the app in the background will like ping for like a notification or like a check-in and just kind of collect the data that's needed.
So, but do they need to go to the doctor to get this device, or they will be able to come to your website or wherever else you will have it available and just purchase it?
They'll be able to go direct to the website. And ideally, I would love to have some pharmacy partnerships for it. And the idea is accessibility. So a direct to consumer model, really, really simple. Because there are people who are not even able to afford health insurance to get treatment, and they are self-medicating in other ways. So really, I want a healthier option out there for them.
But when you said earlier you were in that drugs for 8 years, and then just like that, you were off of it. So, and that's kind of drive you a bit crazy because now you have to start over all over again. Is that something that happen often with people that...
That's a hard one because I think naturally drugs have like a 15 to 20 year patent. So when that patent goes up, depending on how successful the drug's been in the market, it looks to be that situation of making people go off Remicade, or in my example, and then trying biosimilars was not unique to me, unfortunately. And that's just from hearing people in like the infusion suites when I would go for my infusion. So because Remicade is actually administered through an IV where you sit either a doctor's office or an infusion suite. I call them like the 4 seasons of infusion suites. They're normally give you like heated blankets and cookies. And I'm like, yes, you have to get juiced up and then like eat all the things you're not supposed to eat. But people have been on it for 20, 30 years. So that leads me to believe that maybe the patent was longer than what I'm saying here. And then they got kicked off of it too. and then they flared, and it doesn't do anyone any good at all. And it's a huge issue with arthritis in general, with like how long it takes to get to diagnosis, the step therapy that is needed, why doctors' opinions are not, and even the data they provide are not always, I want to say, trusted or believed by the insurance companies. So they make everyone go through hoops. That is not what I'm finding to be unique to me. That, unfortunately, is just the struggles of getting effective care out there to everyone. And again, like I have from my experience, there will be people who don't have this. So it's a very widespread net. And that's where I think it can also get very sticky to talk about. But we do need to talk about it because my company is a result of me not accepting limitations that I had ahead of me. Not everyone is as fortunate to be able to have that be their response. And even if you have insurance, this drug is $7,000 per infusion to get.
Wow.
And yes, there are corporate savings plans out there that help bring it down to $5. But hey, you need to have corporate health insurance, or you need to have a certain type of like Medicare, Medicaid to get it, right? And these things sound so easy on paper, but they're really not for most people
To really get them. So also, you also spoke about the app earlier. So is the app available on all app stores, or there's something they need to download from your website?
So the app is going to be available right now. It's in test flight, which means it's like in the software development beta tester group. So if you go to our website at foralivio.com, I'm sure we'll have all the links down below. You'll be able to sign up to be part of our research community. And the apps are available in Android and Google. And we have been able to integrate with some of the other health apps to get like all of the data. So it's super exciting. And the idea is that if you have Google or Android or any other phone that uses those two networks, you'll be able to download it. You would be able to get it from the Google or the Apple App Store, as well as there will be a link on the website. And when you buy the device, we will be giving a premium subscription of the app for free with the initial device. Yeah.
But something I'm very curious about. So when I look at your name, I look at the company name. It's not the same. So I'm guessing, why you should call the company Olivia? Is there something behind it? Is there a meaning behind it? Or Alivio. Why do you call it Alivio? Is there something special, your a family name or something like that?
So Alivio, for those out there, is the Spanish translation for relief. And for Alivio represents the number of technologies we have combined to get relief for individuals. So it stems actually from my fiance. He is Dominican and Spanish. And as much as I've been trying to learn Spanish for the 4 years that we have been together, all I've got is Alivio. And some other conversational words. But it also symbolizes the fact that not only do I love that translation of what relief means, I don't want people to think of pain only being isolated to one part of the world. It's a universal, unfortunately, also language that people speak that actually tends to flare up in Spanish-speaking countries a lot, as well as the South Pacific. So it was very intentional with the For Alivio and Alivio Technologies and Relief Technologies, not only, in my opinion, does it sound a bit better, but I think it provides a unique view to it. And I will tell you something that I am very passionate about is surrounding myself with diverse and eclectic individuals. And I want that to emulate all throughout the company so that it really is meant by different ethnicities, cultures, beliefs, backgrounds, so that we're able to get the best product out there that helps people from all over the place.
I like it. I think it's unique, it's different. It takes me a while to stop saying Alivia or Olivia. It's Alivio. Yep. So I'm like, it's not the name, it's different. But I couldn't understand where it's come from, so which make a lot of sense now. It's relief. So this company is good. It's whatever you purchase from this company will, or anything you get from them, either for free or paid, will bring you relief.
You got it. That's the intention.
But now, when do you plan on launching the device itself?
Yeah, so that is like the $1 million question, right? So we have been making such great traction. So we're actually going to be going into actively fundraising. So if anyone's interested, please reach out. But I'm aiming for the end of 2024.
The end of 2024.
And it's all dependent on fundraising, but we are looking to do a Kickstarter. We are looking to kind of get ourselves out there earlier. But in the beginning stages, I would say actually mid to end of 2024, is what we're trying to do for some of those items.
Did you decided to start an MBA because you started the company itself? Is that the reason behind it? Because right now you're taking your MBA.
Yeah, I wish it was that well thought out. It was not. So I am finishing up my executive MBA at NYU Stern. And I came onto the company because previously my background was helping corporate retailers go through business transformation, bankruptcy, executive long-range planning. So I was like the financial person because my background's in finance and accounting, as well as like I have an engineering-ish mind for my dad, I often say. And then as I was at Stern, I had a whirlwind of getting kicked off of my Remicade drug and frustrations. And I really leaned in to the network that I made at the university. So like I made the most out of my weekends. It was like, so the program's like every other weekend. And then you work full time. So I really leaned into talking to all the professors, talking to all the researchers, PhDs, doctors, looking at accelerators and incubators. And I finally got the courage to take what I was working on, like on the side and going full-fledged with it, which is terrifying. So for anyone who's doing it, I totally understand what you're going through. Like it's a whole lifestyle change. It's a mindset. So it takes a village, and the school has really supported me in some of the best ways, as well as my fiance and my family being like, you have to try it. And the way that I looked at it too is like, I'm in this executive MBA surrounded by some of the smartest individuals in the world. When would I ever be able to have the time or really be this selfish with my time ever again? Unless I continue to be a lifelong student, which might be my other calling in life. So that's just kind of how it stemmed. And I've been able to do all of the accelerators, all of the workshops and the programs. And I think that's a really unique way of starting a company too.
Yeah.
Is, leaning into the universities, leaning in also to like, I'm in Philadelphia. So Ben Franklin, like IPACs, like some of that Chester County development have really also been helpful. But all of that really stemmed from going to a university that kind of pushed me in the best ways possible.
Well, I wish every university will do that.
It's tough.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think there's this wave of entrepreneurship that's changing. Obviously, we're all like kind of like suffering from COVID and what COVID meant for a lot of people. And I shouldn't say obviously, because I don't think it's obvious how some people have changed. But COVID, at least for myself, has really put in place for me and opened my eyes to what really matters and how I want to spend my time. And when before I was all about like climbing the corporate ladder, training and developing team, I'm like, I still want to climb that ladder, but now I want to really help people who suffer in the same way that I do, and how can I make their lives easier? But closing the entrepreneurship loop is like, I don't have a medical background, but how can you piece those, pieces together to get it? And I think that needs to be talked about more for people who have really amazing ideas, and they just need to be able to meet the right people to talk through the ideas, whether they go somewhere or where they don't. And, I see a lot of like community colleges doing this more.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I see a lot of universities who are changing the trajectory in which people view education, high-tech entrepreneurship in itself, to be, the other side of this coin is so that you don't always have to go to the top-notch school to be an entrepreneur, just as long as you know how to kind of like make your process work for you. And that's what I think we need to talk about more in this whole endeavor of founders all over the world, female founders who are coming up in STEM, who may not have like the background, but who have the mindset for it. Education is a blessing, but education is also a privilege that not everyone gets. And I don't think that should be the sole reason why someone can be an entrepreneur or not. And that is my opinion on that.
But you also do a lot of volunteering when it's come to helping other in your community. So can you talk a little bit more about the impact that you hope to make through your volunteering work?
Yeah. I think I have always been a helper. I've always wanted to help. So whether it's been working with foster youth, doing hospice work, because, unfortunately, we lost my mom 10 years ago. So we do a lot of volunteer work for those individuals who have helped us through a tough time, and we try to pay it forward. So I think that's always been instilled in me and my brothers and even my father. So I take it very seriously with the fact of I want to be able to help and have people at least feel heard. So I work with the Arthritis Foundation. I'm starting to partner a bit with the American Chronic Pain Association, and just really leaning in and being an advocate for change and just listening to people and sharing journeys. I've actually might have overcommitted us slightly. I'm doing this bike tour, San Francisco to LA with the Arthritis Foundation. I know your eyes say it all. With the Arthritis Foundation, it's 525 miles. I will say I rented an e-bike, so I feel the shade coming my way for admitting that. But you have to do what you have to do. And it's going to be amazing. This is my first one doing it, but it's about, I think they have around 200 plus people who are making that trek, and they're raising money for arthritis, research and development. So I think if you're also trying to figure out like what your mission is, volunteering and meeting other like-minded individuals, whether it's people who have a disease like I have, or whether it's people who are trying to do good in the development of the ecosystem and the economy, you meet the people that you want to associate with, and it kind of helps you figure out where your heart and your passions lie. And that's what happened to me with volunteering. Like I just kept going. I was like, oh, it feels so good to help other people. It's less like the selfishness in it, right? It's like it makes your heart feel good to help. But then when you start to be able to see that people have an easier path than what you or others had before you, it's like, how could you not? right? And we have people in the Arthritis Foundation who unfortunately weren't diagnosed for 15 years and are at a different level than most that are actively trying to do change for the babies who have JRA, or the people who are now 20 and 30 getting diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, so they don't have to have a surgery every other month to reconstruct, And that to me is what kind of fuels my fire with also wanting to do this change. And we're also trying to make our company be one that's also at the forefront of research and development and having patients have an outlet. So we're putting on our own event in November in Philadelphia, where we're bringing the community together just to talk about arthritis and raising money for the funds. But it's going to be a company that really emulates a solution, but also advocates for change and having people's voices heard too, which stems from my passion in volunteering.
Is the event in person, or is it going to be online as well?
It's going to be in person. We're thinking about ways to also make it online for individuals who are interested. It's November 2nd at the Canopy. So if you want to make a trip to Philly to have some of the best cheesesteaks and donuts, all of the things us inflammation people should not have, which I have anyways, please come. Please come. But I think it would be great for me to share that information with you too, so that you could also take a look at it.
So, but where can people, do they need to register for it? Anything like that needs to happen, or they just show up?
So if you go to the website, so it's for alivio.com. The conference is called Relief Redefined. You'll see that badge right on our banner. You'll go to the event page, and we do ask that you buy a general admission ticket, or you express interest in signing up. I think people can also reach out to me as well if they're interested in the virtual experience and what that looks like as we continue to suss that out. But we have the event page, which gives you all of the bios of the speaker. It gives you the sponsorship tiers, and it shares a little bit more about the mission of the company and how 50% of the proceeds will go to arthritis research. And it's a whole day schedule is there. So you'll get all of your meals with us. Mm-hmm. We're going to feed you. We're going to feed you well. And then you're going to get a networking happy hour, because we're combining doctors, industry experts in nutrition, patients, and just advocates for change in the chronic pain community coming together just to mix and mingle and just to kind of learn more and have a really interesting day talking about relief. Which I know when people say a conference on pain, I was like, no, it's going to be, it's going to be fun. Yeah, it's not going to be painful. It will be great.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen, for giving me the chance to have this conversation with you, to learn more about the company, what you are doing and why you are doing it, because you have a very, how do I say that? Interesting story behind it. So you didn't just decide, I'm going to start a company. There's something behind it that makes you decide to start this company. And you feel the pain. You went through the pain. You know how it is. You know how people dealing with that type of disease are in a daily basis. Yeah. So for you to say that I'm going to take action, it's mean a lot, because you're not just big company that's just going to do something they never really went through it. They don't really know how it feels. So for you, it's different. So you know your body, you know how that feels. I know that everyone's body is different, right? But at the end of the day, pain is pain. So we all get to feel it either way, even if it's different or not. So I look forward to see the device. And also, I don't have that disease, but I know that it's going to help a lot of people. Like you say, especially in the US, it's a lot of people suffering every day with this. So if we can give them even a tiny bit of relief on a daily basis so that they can do something with their life, then it's mean a lot.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You've nailed it, right? Ideally for me, what success looks like is that people arthritis or non-arthritis who just are dealing with pain have a different option than pain medication.
Yes.
So,
like you said, they spend a lot of money on it, and at the end of the day, they still have pain anyway. Over the counter, they don't really help a lot. So,
yep. Thank you so much for this time. I'm so grateful for you and all of your amazing questions. It's been great.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.